When hotel night clerk Brielle agrees to sit with a lonely man for just one drink, she never expects him to be billionaire hotel heir Silas Ward, or that he'll ask her to choose between love and the empire he's willing to leave behind. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The night shift at the Grand Plaza Hotel wasn't Brielle Thomas's first choice, but when your landlord starts leaving eviction notices on your door, you take whatever job comes your way. "Remember, Ms. Thomas, our guests expect nothing but excellence," said Mr. Jenkins, the hotel manager, as he handed her the keys to the front desk. His grey mustache twitched with every word. Even at 3 in the morning, Brielle nodded, trying to look confident despite the butterflies in her stomach. At 27, she'd had plenty of jobs, waitress, retail, even dog walking, but never at a place where the lobby floors were actual marble and the guests arrived in cars that cost more than her entire life savings. "I understand," she said, smoothing down her new black blazer. It was second-hand but looked professional enough. "Good, your shift ends at 7 a.m. I expect the desk to be spotless." With that, Mr. Jenkins left, his footsteps echoing across the empty lobby. Brielle let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. 2 days. She had 2 days to pay her rent, or she'd be homeless. The emergency position at the Grand Plaza was a miracle, even if it meant adjusting to sleeping during the day. For the first hour, she familiarized herself with the computer system. By midnight, the lobby was completely empty. By 1 a.m., she was fighting to keep her eyes open. The vast, silent space with its glittering chandeliers felt almost eerie. That's when she noticed him. In the dimly lit hotel bar across the lobby sat a man, alone. He wore an expensive suit that looked like it had been perfect that morning, but now had the wrinkles of a long, hard day. A glass of amber liquid, probably bourbon, sat in front of him, but it was his eyes that caught her attention even from a distance. They looked empty, like someone who had forgotten what hope felt like. Brielle hesitated. The bar was technically closed. Guests could serve themselves after hours, but only until 1 a.m. She checked her watch, 1:20. She should tell him. Gathering her courage, she walked across the lobby, her heels clicking against the marble floor. As she approached, she noticed more details. He was handsome, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. He stared at his glass like it held answers to questions he hadn't even asked yet. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. He looked up, and Brielle felt something strange pass between them. Recognition maybe, though she'd never seen him before. "I'm sorry, but the bar is closed," she continued. "Can I help you with anything before you head up to your room?" He studied her for a long moment, his gaze both intense and somehow far away. "Would you sit with me?" he finally asked. "Just until the glass is empty." The request caught her off guard. It wasn't appropriate. She'd just started this job. She should say no. "Please," he added, and something in his voice, a raw honesty, made her decision for her. "Just until the glass is empty," she agreed, sliding into the chair across from him. An awkward silence settled between them. Brielle fidgeted with her name tag. "Brielle," he read aloud. "That's a beautiful name." "Thank you, Mr. Silas," he replied, not offering a last name. "Just Silas tonight." He took a sip from his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. "First night? Is it that obvious?" she asked with a nervous laugh. "You still have that look, like you're afraid of breaking something expensive." Brielle smiled despite herself. "Well, everything in this place probably costs more than my monthly rent." "And what brings you to the night shift at the Grand Plaza, Brielle?" She hesitated, then decided there was no harm in honesty. "Desperation, mostly. I'm 2 days away from eviction." Silas nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Life has a way of backing us into corners." "What about you?" she asked. "Most people aren't sitting alone in hotel bars at 1 a.m. unless something's wrong." He swirled the bourbon in his glass. "It's my birthday." "Your birthday? And you're alone?" A sad smile touched his lips. The people who should have remembered didn't. And the person who promised to remember forever is now married to someone else. Brielle felt her heart twist. "I'm sorry, don't be." It's just another day, right? But his eyes said differently. No one should be alone on their birthday, she said firmly. Silas looked surprised, then grateful. Thank you for that. They fell into conversation then, easier than Brielle expected. He didn't talk about his job or where he was from, and she didn't ask. Instead, they spoke about small things, favorite books, movies they'd seen, places they'd like to visit someday. He listened to her with an intensity that made her feel like every word mattered. When he finally drained his glass, he seemed reluctant to leave. Thank you, Brielle. You've made a rather dismal birthday significantly better. Happy birthday. Silas, she replied, even if it's almost over. He stood, straightened his jacket, and gave her one last look. Good night. She watched him walk to the elevator, wondering who he was and why he seemed so familiar. The name Silas tugged at her. Memory, but she couldn't place it. The next night, Brielle wasn't surprised when he appeared again. Same bar, same table, same time. Bourbon? She asked, walking over during a quiet moment. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. You remembered. It's part of the job, she said, but they both knew that wasn't why. For the next few hours, between her duties at the front desk, she would walk over and sit with him for a few minutes. He never asked about her life beyond the hotel, and she returned the favor. It was easier that way. Two strangers sharing moments of honesty without the complications of the real world. By the third night, she found herself looking forward to seeing him. He was always dressed impeccably, though his tie was usually loosened by the time she joined him. He always had the same drink, and he always waited for her. Why this hotel? She asked him on the fourth night. Something flashed in his eyes. Hesitation. I like the company, he finally said, looking directly at her. Brielle felt her cheeks warm. There are better places to find company than an empty hotel bar at 1 a.m. Are there? I haven't found them. On the fifth night, he asked more about her. What would you be doing if you weren't working night shift at a hotel? Brielle laughed. You mean in my dream world where rent doesn't exist? Exactly, she thought. For a moment. I'd be writing. I've always wanted to write children's books, stories that help kids feel less alone. Why haven't you? Life got in the way. Bills, failed relationships. The usual excuses. She shrugged. What about you? What would you be doing if you could do anything? A shadow crossed his face. Living simply, making my own decisions, being known for who I am, not what I have. The cryptic answer intrigued her. But she didn't push. As days turned into weeks, their nightly meetings became the highlight of Brielle's shift. She found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone. About her childhood in foster care, about the book she'd started writing but never finished, about her fears of never finding where she belonged. Silas mostly listened, but occasionally, he'd share fragments of his own life. He never mentioned his last name or his job. The only personal detail he confirmed was that he'd been engaged once, but she'd left him for someone with fewer complications. What does that mean? Brielle had asked. It means I come with strings attached, lots of them. It should have been a warning, but by then Brielle was falling for him, this mysterious man who appeared every night like clockwork, who looked at her like she was the only person in the world, who made her feel both seen and heard for the first time in years. 1 month into their strange ritual, Mr. Jenkins called Brielle into his office. Ms. Thomas, your temporary position was only supposed to last 3 weeks, he said, shuffling papers on his desk. However, your performance has been exemplary. We'd like to offer you a permanent position. Relief flooded through her. No more eviction worries. No more scraping by. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, I accept. That night, she couldn't wait to tell Silas the good news. She even applied an extra touch of mascara and lip gloss before her shift. But 1 a.m. came and went. The bar remained empty. By 2 a.m., Brielle felt a heaviness in her chest she didn't want to acknowledge. By 3 a.m., she had convinced herself he was never coming back. Why would he? She was just the night clerk who kept him company. At 4 a.m., the bellhops approached the front desk. Miss Thomas, I was asked to give you this. He handed her an envelope. With trembling fingers, Brielle opened it. Inside was a key card and a note written in a strong, decisive hand. 203. I'm not asking for forever, just 1 hour of truth. Her heart raced. Room 1203. The penthouse suite. Was he staying there all this time? She debated what to do. Going to a guest's room was strictly against hotel policy. She could lose her new permanent position. And yet, at 4:30 a.m., when the lobby was empty and her backup had arrived to cover a quick break, Brielle found herself in the elevator, pressing the button for the 12th floor. Her palms were sweaty. What was she doing? The doors opened directly into a private foyer. Room 1203 was the only door. Taking a deep breath, she used the keycard. The penthouse suite was breathtaking, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. But Brielle hardly noticed the luxury. Her eyes were fixed on the man standing by the window. Silas turned to face her. In his hands was a single cupcake with a lit candle. "No one sang to me," he said softly. "I thought, maybe you would." Brielle felt tears prick her eyes. She stepped forward, confused but deeply moved. "Silas, what is this? Whose room is this?" "Mine," he said simply. "Or rather, my company's. This entire hotel is mine, Brielle." She froze. "What?" "My full name is Silas Ward, Ward Hotels International." He set the cupcake down on a nearby table. "I own this building, and 16 others like it around the world." The name hit her like a thunderbolt. Silas Ward, the billionaire hotel magnate, whose face occasionally graced business magazines. The man whose name was literally on the building. "You've been lying to me," she whispered. "No," he countered quickly. "I just didn't tell you everything." "Why? Was this some kind of game? The lonely billionaire and the desperate night clerk?" Pain flashed across his face. "It was never a game, Brielle. That first night, my birthday, I came down to the bar because I couldn't stand the silence of this room anymore. Everyone who called me that day wanted something from Silas Ward, the CEO. Not one person called just to wish Silas the man a happy birthday." He took a step toward her. "And then there you were, looking at me like I was just a person having a bad day. Do you know how long it's been since someone looked at me that way?" Brielle's mind was spinning. But why keep coming back? Why not tell me? Because for the first time in years, someone was seeing me. Just me. Not my money, not my dame, not what I could do for them. His voice grew softer, and I was terrified that would change if you knew the truth. "So why tell me now?" Silas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize over their weeks together. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Brielle, and I can't keep lying to you if there's any chance you might feel the same way." The words hung in the air between them. Brielle felt her heart hammering in her chest. Could she trust him? Should she? "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "You can walk out that door and go back to your life. I won't bother you again, or—" He gestured to the cupcake with its flickering candle. "You could sing me a belated birthday song, and we could see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations, just truth from now on." Brielle looked at him, really looked at him. Beyond the expensive suit and the penthouse suite was the same man who had sat with her night after night, who had listened to her dreams, who had made her feel less alone in the world. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the cupcake. With a soft, slightly trembling voice, she began to sing. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Silas. Happy birthday to you." As the last note faded, their eyes met across the flickering candlelight. Silas smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. "Thank you," he said softly. "No one's sung to me since I was a child." Brielle felt her heart skip. "That's sad." "Make a wish," she added, gesturing to the candle. Silas held her gaze as he blew out the small flame. The room seemed to grow more intimate in the sudden dimness. "Did you wish for something good?" she asked. "Yes." He didn't elaborate, but the way he looked at her made her cheeks warm. Brielle glanced around the luxurious penthouse, trying to process everything. The plush carpets, the artwork that probably cost more than her entire life savings, the view of the city that only the very wealthy ever got to see. "So, you're really Silas Ward, the Silas Ward," he nodded. "I am." "Why would someone like you spend every night in a hotel bar talking to someone like me?" Silas frowned. "Someone like you?" "You know what I mean. I'm nobody. You're, well, you. She gestured around the room. All this, he repeated, his voice suddenly bitter, is exactly why I didn't tell you. The minute people know who I am, they stop seeing me and start seeing this. He waved his hand at the opulent surroundings. The money, the name, the empire. He walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. Do you know why my fiancée left me? Brielle shook her head. Victoria said being with me was like being with a corporation, not a man. His shoulders tensed. She said every dinner conversation revolved around business. Every vacation turned into a work trip. Every moment of our relationship had to be scheduled around board meetings and investor calls. He turned back to face Brielle. She wasn't wrong. I've spent so long being Silas Ward's CEO that I forgot how to just be Silas. Brielle approached him cautiously. But you are Silas Ward's CEO, that's part of who you are. It's what I do, not who I am, he corrected gently. These past weeks with you, that was the real me. The man who likes old movies and prefers sunsets to sunrises. The man who can talk for hours about books but dreads small talk at parties. His eyes softened. The man who found himself looking forward to 1 a.m. every night because for once someone was looking at him and actually seeing him. Brielle's heart raced. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part was scared. Men like Silas Ward didn't fall for women like her. That only happened in fairy tales and movies. I should go, she said suddenly. I'm still on shift. Mr. Jenkins works for me, Silas reminded her gently. But I understand if you need time, this is a lot to take in. She nodded, grateful he wasn't pushing. Why did you invite me here tonight? Why reveal everything now? Silas cut a piece of the cupcake with a small fork and offered it to her. Because tomorrow, I leave for a 2-week business trip to Tokyo, and I couldn't bear the thought of not seeing you for that long without at least being honest about who I am. Brielle took the bite he offered, the sweetness of the frosting a stark contrast to the turmoil in her mind. What happens now? She asked. That's up to you, he said. We could pretend none of this happened, or he took a deep breath. Or you could have dinner with me when I get back. A real date, no secrets. Brielle felt dizzy with the unreality of it all. I need to think. Of course. He walked her to the door. Brielle? She turned. Thank you for the song. It was the best birthday gift I've had in years. When she returned to the front desk, her hands were still shaking. Silas Ward. She'd been falling for Silas Ward without even knowing it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. Brielle continued her night shifts, but the bar remained empty. She found herself missing their conversations more than she wanted to admit. Meanwhile, hotel staff suddenly treated her differently. Word had somehow spread that she'd been seen entering the penthouse. Whispers followed her down corridors. Gold digger, she overheard one of the day receptionists mutter. Wonder what she did to catch his eye, said another. Even Mr. Jenkins, who had been so pleased with her work, now watched her with suspicious eyes. One night, Emma, one of the housekeepers who had become a friend, confronted her directly in the break room. Is it true? Are you seeing Silas Ward? Brielle sighed. It's complicated. Emma sat across from her. Girl, be careful. I've worked here 5 years. I've seen how the rich treat people like us. He's not like that, Brielle defended automatically. That's what Vanessa thought too. Vanessa? Emma's eyes widened. You don't know? Vanessa was a waitress here 2 years ago. Mr. Ward took an interest in her. Gifts, private dinners. Then one day she was gone, fired. No explanation. Brielle felt her stomach drop. There must be more to that story. Maybe, Emma shrugged. All I'm saying is, men like him see women like us as temporary amusements, not forever material. The words haunted Brielle for days. Was that all she was to Silas? A distraction? An amusing break from his regular life? On the night before Silas was due to return from Tokyo, Brielle found a delivery waiting at the front desk when she arrived for her shift. Package for you, Miss Thomas, said the day manager, eyeing her suspiciously. Inside was a beautiful leather journal with her name embossed on the cover and a note. For the children's stories you've yet to write. The world needs them. Tokyo was lonely without our midnight talks. Dinner tomorrow? S. Brielle traced her fingers over the journal. It was thoughtful, personal, not flashy or expensive like she'd feared. She wavered. The next night, Brielle dressed with extra care before her shift. She wasn't sure if Silas would appear or what she would say if he did. The journal sat in her purse, both a promise and a question. At precisely 1 a.m., the elevator doors opened and Silas stepped into the lobby. He wore a simple button-down shirt rather than his usual suit. He looked tired, but his face brightened when he saw her. "You're still here," he said, approaching the front desk. "Where else would I be?" she replied, trying to sound casual despite her pounding heart. "I wasn't sure after everything." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking uncertain, a stark contrast to the confident businessman the world knew. "Did you get my gift?" She nodded. "It was perfect. Thank you." "About dinner." "I heard about Vanessa," Brielle interrupted. Silas blinked. "Vanessa? The waitress who worked here, the one you were involved with before she was suddenly fired." Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by frustration. "Is that what people are saying? Isn't it true?" He shook his head, emphatically. "Vanessa Miller was caught stealing from guests' rooms. Security cameras confirmed it. When confronted, she claimed we were in a relationship, that I'd given her permission to borrow things. It wasn't true." Brielle studied his face, looking for signs of deception but finding none. "Why would she lie?" she asked. "She thought it would save her job, or that I'd pay her to keep quiet about a relationship that never existed." He sighed. "It's happened before. It's another reason I stopped." "Connecting with people. Everyone wants something. And what do you think I want?" Brielle asked quietly. Silas looked at her, his gaze intense. "That's just it, Brielle. In all our conversations, you've never once asked me for anything. Not money, not connections, not even a better position here at the hotel." He stepped closer, to the desk. "You listened, you shared. You treated me like a person, not a bank account." Brielle felt her defenses weakening. "I'm scared, Silas. Us, it doesn't make sense. People like you don't end up with people like me." "People like me," he repeated with a sad smile. "Lonely, tired of pretending. Looking for something real in a world of fake smiles and hidden agendas?" He reached across the desk and took her hand. "If that's what you mean by people like me, then yes, people like me absolutely end up with people like you. If they're lucky enough to find them." Brielle felt tears threatening. "And what happens when you get bored, when the novelty of the night clerk wears off? Is that what you think this is? Novelty? Isn't it? The billionaire and the nobody, it's like something from a movie. But real life isn't like that." Silas's expression grew serious. "Brielle, I've dated socialites, models, even a princess once. Women with pedigrees and trust funds and connections. You know what they all had in common?" She shook her head. "Not one of them ever asked me about my favorite book, or told me about their dreams, or sang me a birthday song at 4:30 in the morning." His thumb caressed the back of her hand. "Not one of them ever saw past Silas Ward to just Silas." The lobby was empty except for them, the late hour wrapping around them like a cocoon. In the silence, Brielle could hear her own heart beating. "Have dinner with me," he said softly. "Not here. Somewhere quiet where we can talk. Give me a chance to prove this is real." Against her better judgment, against the warnings of her colleagues, against the voice in her head listing all the ways, this could end badly. Brielle nodded. "Okay." The smile that lit up his face was worth the risk. The restaurant he chose wasn't what she expected. No Michelin stars, no white tablecloths. Instead, it was a small Italian place in a quiet neighborhood, with checkered cloths and candles stuck in old wine bottles. "I found this place when I first moved to the city," Silas explained as they were seated in a corner booth. "Before the money, before the hotels, I was just a kid with big dreams and an empty wallet." "It's perfect," Brielle said, looking around, at the family photos on the walls and the handwritten specials board. Throughout dinner, they talked as easily as they had during their late-night meetings at the hotel bar, but now there were no secrets between them. Silas told her about the pressure of running a global company, about board members who wanted him to be more ruthless, about the loneliness of success. Brielle shared more of her own story, growing up in the foster system, putting herself through community college, the series of setbacks that had led to her nearly being evicted. "What about your writing?" he asked as they shared a tiramisu. "Have you used the journal yet?" She blushed. "I've started something. It's silly." "I doubt that. It's about a little girl who discovers she can talk to buildings. Each one has its own personality, its own story to tell." Silas's eyes lit up. "That's charming, I'd read that." "Are you just saying that?" "I'm not. I think it's a wonderful concept." By the time they left the restaurant, something had shifted between them. The gap between their worlds didn't seem quite so vast anymore. Outside, his driver waited with a sleek black car. "I had a wonderful time," Brielle said, suddenly shy. "I did too." Silas hesitated. "Can I see you again? Outside of your night shifts?" She nodded. "I'd like that." He leaned down and kissed her cheek, his lips lingering for just a moment. "Good night." "Brielle." As she watched his car drive away, Brielle touched the spot where his lips had been. She was falling for Silas Ward, not the billionaire, but the man who hid from his birthday, who remembered her dreams, who looked at her like she was something precious, and it terrified her. The following weeks brought a whirlwind of changes. Silas and Brielle began seeing each other regularly. Dinners, walks in the park, quiet evenings in his penthouse where they'd read or watch old movies. Sometimes he'd listen as she shared ideas for her children's book, offering encouragement, but never pushing. The hotel staff still whispered, but Brielle found she cared less with each passing day. What they had felt real, regardless of what anyone thought. But not everyone was pleased with their blossoming relationship. One afternoon, a striking woman in a designer suit appeared at the front desk during Brielle's shift. Elegant, polished, with a confident air of someone accustomed to getting her way. "I need to speak with Silas Ward," she announced without introduction. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Ward isn't available right now," Brielle replied professionally. "Would you like to leave a message?" The woman gave her a cold once-over. "And you are?" "Brielle Thomas, night manager." "Ah, you're her." The woman's red lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The latest distraction. Brielle felt her cheeks flush. "Excuse me." "I'm Victoria Charles, Silas's ex-fiancée." She leaned against the desk. "Has he told you about me?" Brielle kept her expression neutral despite the knot forming in her stomach. "Yes, he has." "Did he tell you I broke his heart? Left him for another man?" Victoria laughed. "That's what he tells everyone. The truth is more complicated." "I'm sure it is," Brielle replied coolly. "Now, about that message," Victoria ignored the question. "You know this won't last, right? It never does with Silas. He gets bored, distracted by the next crisis, the next deal. The novelty of dating the help will wear off." The word stung, echoing Brielle's own fears. "Is there a point to this conversation, Ms. Charles?" Brielle asked, fighting to maintain her composure. Victoria reached into her purse and withdrew a business card. "When it ends, and it will, call. I run a PR firm now. I could use someone with inside knowledge of the Ward empire." She slid the card across the desk. "Think about it. He'll discard you eventually. Might as well get something out of it." After Victoria left, Brielle stared at the card, her hands trembling slightly. Was this her future? Being offered money for secrets about Silas? That night, when he came to meet her after her shift, she was quiet. "What's wrong?" he asked as they walked to his car. "Your ex-fiancée paid me a visit today." Silas stopped walking. "Victoria, what did she want?" "To warn me, and to offer me a job after you get tired of me." His jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. Victoria can be vindictive." "Is she wrong?" Brielle asked, voicing the fear that had been growing inside her. "Will you get tired of me?" Silas turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Brielle, what I feel for you isn't temporary. It's not a distraction or a novelty. But our worlds are so different. Our circumstances are different," he corrected. "Our worlds, what matters to us, what we value, how we see life, those are remarkably similar." He squeezed her hands gently. "Do you know what Victoria really couldn't forgive? That I wouldn't give up the hotels. They weren't just businesses to me, they were dreams made real. places where people could feel at home even when they were far from it. His eyes held hers. You understand that. You've never once asked me to be less ambitious, less passionate about what I've built. You just ask that I make room in my life for you too. And I want to. More than anything. Brielle felt tears threatening. I'm scared, Silas. Scared this is all going to disappear. It won't, he promised. Not if I have anything to say about it. As he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her in the middle of the sidewalk, Brielle wanted desperately to believe him, but Victoria's words had planted a seed of doubt. And seeds, once planted, have a way of growing, especially in the dark. 3 months into their relationship, Brielle moved out of her tiny apartment and into a more comfortable one-bedroom closer to the hotel. Though Silas had offered to help, with the rent, she insisted on paying her own way. I need to stand on my own feet, she explained as they carried boxes into the new place. It was still modest by his standards, but to her it was a palace compared to what she'd had before. I understand, Silas said, setting down a heavy box of books. But at least let me help with the moving costs. Brielle smiled, touched by his concern but determined to maintain her independence. I can handle it. I've been saving since I got the permanent position. Silas looked around the apartment, taking in the second-hand furniture and the walls that desperately needed repainting. At least let me help with the walls. A fresh coat of paint would brighten this place up. Are you offering to paint them yourself? She teased. To her surprise, Silas rolled up his sleeves. Got any brushes? That weekend, they transformed the apartment together. Silas, the billionaire hotel magnate, covered in paint splatters, laughing as they worked side by side. It was during these simple moments that Brielle felt closest to him, when the gap between their worlds seemed to disappear. Have you ever done this before? She asked, as he carefully edged around a window frame. Not since college, he admitted. My roommate and I painted our dorm room without permission. Got in trouble, but it was worth it. Brielle smiled, trying to picture a younger Silas, before the responsibility, before the empire. What were you like back then? He paused, brush in hand. Ambitious, driven, but happier maybe, less weighed down. By what? Expectations. My father built the first ward hotel from nothing. When he died, everyone expected me to expand the business, make it global. Silas continued painting with careful strokes. I was 24, barely out of business school, suddenly responsible for hundreds of employees. Brielle watched him, seeing the tension return to his shoulders at the memory. But you succeeded. Ward Hotels is huge now. Yes, he said quietly, but sometimes I wonder at what cost. Later that evening, as they sat on the floor eating takeout because her dining table hadn't been delivered yet, Silas brought up something unexpected. I have to attend the International Hotel Association Gala. Next weekend, he said between bites of lo mein. Would you come with me? Brielle nearly choked on her food. As your date in public? Yes. He reached for her hand. It's time people knew about us. I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you. Panic fluttered in her chest. But it'll be full of important people. Business partners, competitors, the press. Probably, he acknowledged. Does that bother you? Silas, I work the night desk at a hotel. I don't belong at galas with billionaires and celebrities. He frowned. You belong wherever I am. The gala invitation sparked their first real argument. Brielle feared being judged, being found wanting. Silas couldn't understand why she wouldn't want to be publicly acknowledged as his partner. Are you ashamed of me? He finally asked, his voice tight with hurt. Of course not, it's the opposite. I'm afraid they'll all think I'm not good enough for you. I don't care what they think, I care about you. In the end, she agreed to go, not because she felt ready, but because she couldn't bear the pain in his eyes when she hesitated. The week before the gala was a whirlwind. Silas insisted on buying her a dress, and though she protested at first, she eventually gave in when he explained it was expected for the event. Nothing too extravagant, she insisted. The dress that arrived was a deep emerald green, elegant without being flashy. Along with it came a note. To match your eyes, you'll outshine everyone there, S. The night of the gala, Brielle felt like an imposter as she stepped out of Silas's limousine. The event was being held at the Grand Royal, Ward Hotel's flagship property across town. Cameras flashed as they walked the red carpet. Silas! Over. Here? Called reporters. Who's your date? Silas squeezed her hand reassuringly as they continued inside, not stopping for interviews. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements. Mr. Ward, a portly man with grey hair, approached them immediately. "So glad you could make it. The Berlin deal is all anyone's talking about." "Jacob," Silas nodded politely. "May I introduce Brielle Thomas? Brielle, this is Jacob Hemsworth, our VP of European Operations." Jacob's eyes widened slightly as he shook her hand. "Pleasure. How did you two meet?" "Before—" Brielle could answer, Silas said smoothly. "Brielle works at the Grand Plaza. She's the night manager." To Jacob's credit, he hid his surprise quickly. "Wonderful. Always good to see Mr. Ward taking an interest in our staff." As the evening progressed, Brielle endured more such introductions. Some people were polite, others barely concealed their judgment. She overheard whispers, "Night manager? That's a new one. Wonder how long this one will last. Probably after his money." Silas seemed oblivious to the undercurrents, proudly introducing her to everyone. He kept her close, his hand resting protectively at the small of her back. During dinner, they were seated at the head table with the hotel executive team. Brielle tried to follow the conversation about market expansions and property acquisitions, but felt increasingly out of place. "So, Miss Thomas," said Diana Winters, the chief marketing officer, during a lull in the conversation. "How are you? Finding the transition from night shift to this?" She gestured vaguely around the ballroom. "I still work nights, actually," Brielle replied. "I haven't quit my job." Diana's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Really? How principled of you." "Brielle believes in independence," Silas interjected, a hint of pride in his voice. "It's one of the things I admire most about her." Diana smiled thinly. "I'm sure." After dinner, as the dancing began, an elegant woman in a red dress approached. Their table, Victoria Charles. She looked even more intimidating in evening wear than she had at the hotel. "Silas, darling," she air-kissed both his cheeks. "The Berlin acquisition is brilliant. Exactly what I told you to do last year." Silas's expression remained pleasant, but cool. "Victoria, you're looking well." Victoria turned her attention to Brielle. "And the night manager. Moving up in the world, I see." Brielle forced a smile. "Ms. Charles, nice to see you again." "Victoria is the PR consultant for the Brenner Hotel Group now," Silas explained. "Our biggest competitor." "Not for long, from what I hear," Victoria replied with a predatory smile. "Your board isn't happy with the direction you're taking the company, Silas. Too much focus on distractions." Her eyes flicked meaningfully to Brielle. Silas's jaw tightened. "My board's concerns are none of your business. Just looking out for an old friend." Victoria touched his arm. "And we should catch up soon for old time's sake." After she left, Brielle noticed Silas seemed tense. What was that about, the board? "Nothing to worry about," he assured her. "Victoria's just stirring up trouble," but she could tell he was holding something back. Later, as they slow danced, Brielle rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Thank you for bringing me tonight," she said softly. He kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for coming. I know it wasn't easy." "Your world is very different from mine, Silas." "It doesn't have to be," he murmured. "Our worlds can become one, if you'll let them." The words hung between them, full of promise and possibility. The next morning, Brielle woke to the sound of Silas's phone ringing. They had stayed at his penthouse after the gala, too tired to drive to her apartment. "Ward," he answered, his voice instantly shifting into business mode. "What? When?" He sat up, suddenly alert. "Call an emergency board meeting. 3 o'clock. After hanging up, he turned to Brielle, his expression grim. "I have to go." "What's wrong?" He ran a hand through his hair. "The Berlin deal. Someone leaked confidential information to the Brenner Group. They've undercut our offer at the last minute." Brielle sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "That's awful. Who would do that?" "I don't know." But the way he said it, the flicker of doubt in his eyes, made her heart sink. "You don't think—" "Me?" Silas looked startled. "Of course not." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" He sighed. "It's just the timing. Right after the gala, where I introduced you to everyone, where Victoria saw us together. Anger flared in her chest. So you do suspect me? You think I told Victoria your business secrets? No, that's not what I meant. He moved to touch her arm, but she pulled away. It sure sounds like it. Tears burned behind her eyes. Do you know what people were saying about me last night? That I'm after your money, that I'm using you, and now you're looking at me like maybe they were right. Brielle, please, I need to go. She got up, grabbing her clothes from the chair where she'd draped them the night before. Don't leave like this, Silas pleaded. We need to talk. You need to get to your emergency board meeting, she said coldly. I need to get ready for my shift at my job, the one I kept because I never wanted to be dependent on you. As she dressed in the bathroom, tears flowing freely now, Brielle wondered if Victoria had been right all along. Maybe she and Silas were just too different. Maybe their worlds could never truly merge. The next few days were agony. Silas called and texted repeatedly, but Brielle kept her responses brief and professional. She threw herself into her work, picking up extra shifts to avoid going back to the apartment they had painted together. A week after the gala, Mr. Jenkins called her into his office. Ms. Thomas, he began awkwardly, I've received some concerns about your position here. Her stomach dropped. What concerns? Given your relationship with Mr. Ward, some board members feel there might be a conflict of interest having you work with sensitive guest information. Brielle felt like she'd been slapped. Are you firing me? No, Mr. Jenkins hastened to add, just transferring you to our reservations call center. Same pay, better hours. Day shift, away from the front desk? She couldn't believe what she was hearing. This is because of Silas, isn't it? Mr. Jenkins looked uncomfortable. These orders came from above, not from Mr. Ward, he added quickly, from the board. They're concerned about appearances. Humiliation burned through her. All those whispers at the gala, all those judgmental looks, they had been right. She didn't belong in Silas's world, and now she was being pushed out of her own. I quit, she said, standing up. Ms. Thomas, please reconsider. No, if the board doesn't trust me to do my job because of who I'm dating, then I don't want to work here. She cleared out her locker, holding back tears until she reached the street. Then they came in a flood, hot and bitter. Everything was falling apart. When she finally checked her phone, there were 5 missed calls from Silas. She ignored them and took a taxi back to her apartment. Inside, surrounded by the freshly painted walls they had done together, Brielle finally let herself break down completely. How had she been so naive? A night clerk and a billionaire. It was doomed from the start. The doorbell rang around 8 p.m. She knew who it was before opening the door. Silas stood there, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. His tie was loose, his hair mussed, and there were dark circles under his eyes. You quit, he said without preamble. Your board made it clear I wasn't wanted. I didn't know, I swear, Brielle, I just found out. He stepped forward. I would never have let them do that. But they did it anyway. Because that's the reality, Silas. Your world doesn't want me in it. That's not true. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. It is true. At the gala, everyone looked at me like I didn't belong. And they were right. Pain flashed across his face. Is that how you feel? That you don't belong with me? I don't know anymore. She wrapped her arms around herself. I thought we could make it work, but what? One setback, and you're giving up. Anger sparked through her grief. Setback? I lost my job. Because of you, because of us. I'll talk to the board. That's not the point, she cried. Don't you see? This will always happen. Your world and mine, they don't mix. Silas's face hardened. So Victoria was right. You don't believe in us either. What's that supposed to mean? He paced across her small living room. At the board meeting, Victoria presented the leaked information. She said I was distracted, making poor decisions because I was involved with an employee. And the board believed her? Some did. He stopped pacing. But that's not what matters. What matters is whether you believe in us, whether you're willing to fight for what we have. Brielle felt torn. Part of her wanted to run into his arms, to believe they could overcome anything together. But another part, the part that had survived foster care and poverty and countless disappointments, warned her to protect herself. I don't know if I can fight the entire world, Silas. His expression softened. You don't have to fight the entire world. Just stand with me while I do. He took a step closer. Brielle, what we have is worth fighting for. I've spent my life building hotels, creating places for people to feel at home, but I never had a real home myself until I met you. Tears welled in her eyes again. Silas, the board wants me to choose between you and the company, he continued. They think I can't balance both. But they're wrong. His voice grew stronger. I can be both the man who builds hotels and the man who loves you. I just need you to believe that too. And if they force you to choose, she whispered. Without hesitation, he replied, then I choose you. The words hung in the air between them. Silas Ward, who had dedicated his life to his family's legacy, was willing to give it all up. For her. You don't mean that, she said. Disbelieving, I do. He closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. The hotels, the money, the name, none of it matters without you. I built an empire but forgot to build a life. You reminded me what really matters. Brielle felt her defenses crumbling. But your father's legacy, my father wanted me to be happy. He built the business to provide for his family, not the other way around. Silas's eyes were clear, determined. I love you, Brielle. More than any hotel, any deal, any company. She searched his face, looking for any sign of doubt or hesitation. There was none. I love you too, she whispered, finally allowing herself to admit it. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Then that's all that matters. We'll figure out the rest together. As Brielle relaxed against him, she wanted desperately to believe him. That love was enough. That they could bridge the gap between their worlds. But as his phone began to ring in his pocket, undoubtedly another business crisis demanding his attention, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that the hardest challenges were still to come. The question wasn't whether Silas would choose her over the company if forced. The question was whether she could live with herself if he did. The next morning, Brielle woke to find Silas already dressed in a crisp suit, typing rapidly, on his laptop at her small kitchen table. Morning, he said, looking up with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I made coffee. Thanks. She poured herself a cup, noticing the tension in his shoulders. Everything okay? He hesitated. The board called an emergency meeting for this afternoon to discuss recent events. Brielle's stomach dropped. Because of us? Partly. And because of the Berlin deal falling through. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as a sign of stress. Victoria did a number on them, convinced some of the older members that my judgment is compromised. Because of me, Brielle said quietly. Silas looked at her directly. No, because I've been pushing for changes they don't like, more sustainable practices, better employee benefits. The Berlin deal was going to be our first completely carbon-neutral property. He closed his laptop. Victoria and her clients want Ward Hotels to stay exactly as it is, profitable but conventional. They're using my relationship with you as an excuse to undermine my vision. Brielle sat down across from him, cradling her coffee mug. What are you going to do? Determination hardened his features. Fight back. I still own controlling interest. The board advises, but they can't force me out. And us? His expression softened. What I said last night stands. If they make me choose, I choose you. But would that be the right choice? The question that had haunted her all night finally spilled out. Your father built this company. Hundreds of people depend on it for their livelihood. Don't, Silas interrupted firmly. Don't diminish what you mean to me. He reached across the table for her hand. For too long, I've been the company. It's time I remembered how to be a person too. His phone rang, the 5th time since she'd woken up. Silas checked the screen and sighed. I have to take this. As he stepped into the living room to answer the call, Brielle watched him transform back into Silas Ward, CEO. His posture straightened. His voice took on an authoritative edge, and just like that, he was gone. Physically present but mentally back in boardrooms and balance sheets. This was the reality of loving him, she realized. Always sharing him with an empire. After he left for his meeting, Brielle tried to distract herself. She cleaned the apartment, worked on her children's story, even called a few places about job openings. Nothing helped. Her thoughts kept circling back to Silas and the impossible choice he might have to make. Around 5 p.m. there was a knock at her door. Expecting Silas, she was surprised to find a stern-faced woman in a tailored suit standing in the hallway. "Ms. Thomas, I'm Eleanor Reed, chair of the Ward Hotels Board." The woman extended a perfectly manicured hand. "May I come in?" Stunned, Brielle stepped aside. Eleanor Reed was a legend in the business world, a pioneering female executive who had broken glass ceilings in the hotel industry decades ago. "I apologize for coming unannounced," Eleanor said, her sharp eyes taking in the modest apartment. "But I believe we need to talk." "About Silas," Brielle guessed, her heart racing. "About Silas," Eleanor confirmed, settling primly on the edge of Brielle's second-hand couch. "And about you. And about the future of Ward Hotels." Brielle sat across from her, trying to appear calm despite her churning stomach. "I assume the board meeting didn't go well?" On the contrary, it was quite illuminating. Eleanor studied her with cool assessment. "Silas gave us an ultimatum. Either the board stops interfering in his personal life, or he sells his shares and walks away." Brielle gasped. "He wouldn't. He would, and he made that abundantly clear." A hint of respect colored Eleanor's tone. "I've known Silas since he was a boy. I've never seen him so resolute about anything that wasn't business-related. What did the board decide?" "We're at an impasse. Half support him, half want him gone." Eleanor leaned forward slightly. "That's why I'm here, to meet the woman who has inspired such devotion in Silas Ward." Brielle felt herself being evaluated, measured against some invisible standard. "I never asked him to choose between me and the company." "I believe you." Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "Which is precisely why I wanted to meet you privately." "I don't understand," Eleanor sighed. "In my 40 years in this business, I've seen countless men in Silas's position fall for the wrong woman. Gold diggers, social climbers, women who wanted the name, the money, the lifestyle, not the man." Brielle bristled. "I know," Eleanor interrupted. "That's exactly my point. You kept your job. You insisted on paying for your own apartment. According to Silas, you've never once asked him for anything." She glanced around the modest living room. "This isn't the home of a woman trying to marry a billionaire." Brielle didn't know how to respond. "Do you love him?" Eleanor asked bluntly. "Yes," Brielle answered without hesitation. But you're afraid you're not enough, that you don't belong in his world." Eleanor nodded knowingly. "That your relationship will ruin what his family built." Tears pricked at Brielle's eyes. "How can it not? Look at what's already happening." "What's happening has very little to do with you, my dear, and everything to do with power." Eleanor's voice grew steely. "Victoria Charles and her backers want control of Ward Hotels. They would have found some excuse to challenge Silas with or without you in the picture. Then why are you here? Because Silas is about to throw away everything his father built. For you." Eleanor held her gaze. "And I need to know if you're going to let him." The blunt question hung in the air between them. "I don't want him to lose the company," Brielle said finally. "But I don't see how we can be together without that happening." Eleanor's lips curved into a small smile. "There is another option. One that Silas is too proud or perhaps too in love to consider." "What?" "You could join the company officially, in a position that reflects your abilities, not your relationship with Silas." Brielle blinked in surprise. "What position?" "Community relations, working with the charitable foundation that Silas's mother established." Eleanor's eyes gleamed with approval. "Silas mentioned your background in foster care, your desire to write children's books, your empathy for those less fortunate," she continued. "The Ward Foundation funds literacy programs, shelters and education initiatives around the world. It needs someone with both compassion and practical experience, someone who understands struggle firsthand." Brielle's mind raced. "But wouldn't that just confirm what everyone's saying, that I'm using Silas? On the contrary, it would show that you're committed not just to Silas, but to the values his family stands for." Eleanor stood, smoothing her skirt. "Think about it. The board meets again tomorrow to vote on Silas's future. At the door, she paused. One last thing, Ms. Thomas. Whatever you decide, remember this. Love without respect doesn't last. If you truly love Silas, don't let him sacrifice his legacy. Help him preserve it instead. After Eleanor left, Brielle sat alone in her apartment, turning the conversation over in her mind. Everything was happening so fast. 3 months ago, she'd been a night clerk desperate to make rent. Now she was at the center of a corporate power struggle with Silas's future hanging in the balance. Her phone rang. Silas. The board is meeting again tomorrow, he said without preamble. Final vote. I know, Eleanor Reed was just here. There was a pause. Eleanor came to see you. What did she say? Brielle took a deep breath. She offered me a job with the ward foundation. She what? Silas sounded genuinely shocked. She seems to think it would solve our problems, that if I were officially part of the company, in a position that makes sense for my background. It's manipulation, Silas said flatly. The board trying to control us both. Is it? Brielle challenged gently. Or is it a compromise? A way for us to be together without you losing everything? I don't want you taking a job out of obligation. What if it's not obligation? What if it's something I might actually be good at? The idea had been growing on her since Eleanor's visit. Helping children like I once was, using my writing, making a difference. Silas was quiet for a long moment. You're considering it. I'm considering all our options. Unlike you, who's ready to throw away a century of family history. For us, he insisted, for something real. But that's just it, Silas. What we have is real. But so is your company. So are the people who depend on it. Brielle tried to keep her voice steady. If you walk away from everything just for me, you'll resent me eventually, and I'll resent myself for letting you do it. So what are you saying? Brielle closed her eyes, gathering her courage. I'm saying I need time to think, to figure out what the right answer is for both of us. Brielle, please, Silas, just give me until tomorrow before the board meeting. After they hung up, Brielle grabbed her jacket and left the apartment. She needed to clear her head, to think without the echo of Silas's voice or the memory of Eleanor's visit clouding her judgment. She found herself walking toward the Grand Plaza, the hotel where it all began, where a lonely man had asked her to sit with him until his glass was empty. The night manager recognized her. Ms. Thomas, we've missed you. Thanks, Jason. Is the bar open? He nodded toward the familiar space across the lobby. For you? Always. Brielle sat at the same table where she'd first met Silas. So much had changed since that night. She had changed. Yet here she was, back where it started, still trying to figure out where she belonged. Excuse me, miss. Brielle looked up to find a young woman in a hotel uniform, a night clerk, just as she had been. Yes? I was told to give you this. The woman handed her an envelope. Inside was a room key. Not to the penthouse this time, but to room 507, and a note in Silas's handwriting, where I first fell in love with your kindness. Meet me? Curiosity overrode hesitation. Brielle took the elevator to the 5th floor, wondering what Silas was planning. Room 507 was a standard room, nice but nowhere near as luxurious as the penthouse. When she opened the door, she gasped. The room had been transformed. Children's drawings covered the walls. A small desk in the corner held a laptop, a printer, and stacks of colorful paper. On the bed lay a mock-up of a children's book cover, The Buildings That Speak, by Brielle Thomas, and there was Silas, looking both nervous and hopeful. What is this? She asked, stepping inside. Plan C, he replied with a small smile. Not you giving up your dreams for me, not me giving up my legacy for you, but something new, together, he gestured around the room. These drawings were done by children in the Ward Foundation's literacy program, children who need stories like the one you're writing. Brielle moved closer to examine the artwork, simple, heartfelt drawings of buildings with faces, of a little girl listening to their stories. I don't understand, she said, turning back to Silas. I spoke with Eleanor after you called. She told me about her offer. He took a deep breath. She was right, and you were right. I can't walk away from everything my family built, but I also can't lose you." He took her hands in his. "What if we found a middle way? You working with the foundation, yes, but also publishing your children's books through a new imprint we create. Books that help kids like you once were. Stories that give them hope." Tears filled Brielle's eyes. "You'd do that?" "I'd do anything for you," he said softly. "But this isn't just for you. It's for us. A way to build something meaningful together." He pulled her gently toward the desk, showing her the mock-ups, the plans, the sketches. "The foundation already has connections with schools and shelters nationwide. Your books could reach thousands of children who need them." Brielle felt overwhelmed. It was everything she'd ever wanted, a chance to write, to make a difference, to belong somewhere, and to do it alongside the man she loved. "What about the board?" she asked. "Victoria," Silas's expression hardened. "Eleanor and I have a plan for tomorrow's meeting. Victoria will find that her influence isn't as strong as she thought, especially once the board sees the foundation's new initiative." He guided her to sit on the edge of the bed. "I was so focused on either keeping my world or entering yours that I never considered we could create a new one. Together." Brielle looked around the room again, at the children's drawings, at the book cover with her name on it, at the man who had made it all possible. "Do you really think this could work? I know it can." His voice was firm, confident. "But more importantly, I know we can, if we're willing to fight for it. Together." He knelt in front of her, taking both her hands in his. "I love you, Brielle. Thomas, not despite our differences, but because of them. You remind me what matters beyond boardrooms and balance sheets." "I love you too," she whispered, "so much that I was willing to walk away rather than see you lose everything." "I know. That's why I'm certain you're the right person, the only person I want to build a future with." His eyes held hers, sincere and unwavering. "So what do you say? Are you willing to create something new with me? Something that honors both our dreams?" In that moment, all the doubts that had plagued Brielle fell away. The gap between their worlds didn't have to be bridged. They could create a new world altogether, one where his business acumen and her compassion worked together, not against each other. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, I am. His." Smile was brighter than all the chandeliers in the hotel lobby. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close as if afraid she might disappear. "There's one more thing," he murmured against her hair. "What?" He released her and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait, do this properly, but after everything we've been through, I don't want to waste another day." Brielle's heart stopped as he opened the box to reveal a ring, not an ostentatious diamond, but a simple emerald surrounded by small pearls. "Green for your eyes," he explained, "and pearls because they grow stronger under pressure, just like us." He took a deep breath. "Brielle Thomas, will you marry?" "Me? Not the billionaire or the hotel magnate, but just the man who asked you to sit with him until his glass was empty." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, as his lips met hers, in a kiss that promised forever, Brielle knew they had finally found where they both belonged. Not in his world or hers, but in the one they would build together. One story, one dream, one day at a time. The next morning, they walked into the board meeting hand in hand. Victoria was there, smug confidence on her face. Until she saw them together, united and resolute, Eleanor Reed called the meeting to order. "Before we vote, Mr. Ward has an announcement." Silas stood, still holding Brielle's hand. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'd like to introduce my fiancée, Brielle Thomas." Murmurs rippled around the table. Victoria's expression darkened. "And," Silas continued, "the new creative director of the Ward Foundation's Literacy Initiative." Eleanor smiled approvingly as Silas outlined their plan, a partnership that would expand the foundation's reach while honoring both their strengths. When he finished, Eleanor spoke. "I move that we endorse Mr. Ward's proposal and welcome Ms. Thomas to the Ward family, both personally and professionally. "I second," said another board member. Victoria stood abruptly. "This is absurd. 3 months ago she was a night clerk, and now she's directing a multi-million-dollar initiative. This is exactly the kind of poor judgment I warned you about." "Actually," Eleanor countered coolly, "it's exactly the kind of innovative thinking. That made Ward Hotels great. Robert Ward started with one small property and a big dream. His son expanded that vision. And now Silas is honoring that legacy by remembering what the Ward name has always stood for, providing a home for everyone, regardless of where they come from." She fixed Victoria with a steely gaze. "Something you seem to have forgotten, Ms. Charles, the vote was decisive. Victoria stormed out, her influence with the board shattered. Silas and Brielle remained, accepting congratulations and well wishes from board members who, just yesterday, had been skeptical at best. As they left the meeting, Silas pulled Brielle into a quiet alcove. "Are you happy?" he asked, searching her. Face Brielle smiled, feeling for the first time that she truly belonged, not because of where she came from or what she had, but because of who she was, who they were together. "Yes," she said, her fingers intertwining with his. "I'm home." 6 months later, the Ward Foundation launched its first children's book, The Buildings That Speak, written by Brielle Thomas Ward, illustrated by children from foster care programs nationwide. It became the cornerstone of a literacy initiative that would eventually reach thousands of underprivileged children. And every night, no matter how busy their days had been, Silas and Brielle would meet in the bar of whatever hotel they happened to be in. Always at the same time, always at the same table. He would have a glass of bourbon, she would sit with him until it was empty, and then they would go home, together.